We're going to spin the dial forward to Jets-Vikings on Sunday morning from London. This game has meaning. The Vikings are undefeated. It's a very important game as the Jets sit 2-2. What's also important is the relationship between head coach and quarterback. After the game on Sunday, after a smattering of false starts for the Jets, Robert Saleh said we've got to figure it out whether or not we are good enough to handle all of the cadence. If you know Aaron Rodgers, after 20 years, the man loves his cadence, okay? Then Rodgers comes out and says, we could just hold players accountable, too. Well, Saleh then was asked again on Monday, and the coach had a different tune.
Well, we got to figure it out, whether or not we're good enough to handle all the or ready to handle all the cadence. Cadence had not been an issue all camp. Felt like our operation had been operating pretty good. Obviously, today it took a major step back.
Yesterday, I was mentioning operation. We're always going to push the envelope with cadence, always. But with regards to operation, getting in and out of the huddle, getting to the line of scrimmage, the communication that's being had, those are all things that we can continue to look at and clean up. But from a cadence standpoint, that's part of what makes us who we are, and we're going to continue to always push the envelope on that.
Perhaps it's fair to say Robert Saleh doesn't want to say the word cadence anymore, Peter. He wants to now use operational as the interchangeable word there. Where do we sit right now with Rodgers and Saleh and cadence gate?
And perhaps he shouldn't use the word cadence. He's a defensive coach, and I think the second he starts talking about the offensive cadence, and I think there's a lot of sensitivities there from a quarterback like Aaron Rodgers, who's a four-time MVP and has been doing it for 20 years. I also think the market matters. I think in New York, when you have fans who drove, 2 hours in the rain and sat in the rain and watched that offensive performance and saw 5 false starts, it's easy fodder for sports media to take after it. I think the Jets beat is an incredible one. But on Monday morning, you've got Boomer Esiason coming out saying there's major issues between Saleh and Rodgers. You got Damian Woody on ESPN saying it was a horrible coaching performance, and the loss is on Saleh. This is why New York's different than Jacksonville. It's why New York is different than Cincinnati. It's why New York is different than Seattle. This is what is going to happen when you start losing, especially with expectations that were built so high. The question is, can you rise above it? Can you galvanize around it? Can you be the team and the group that says, block out the noise? So many coaches in the past haven't been able to. I think it got to Adam Gase when he was the coach of the Jets. I think it got to Joe Judge when he was the coach of the Giants. And once it starts, it could be an avalanche. The only thing that can really, truly stop it is wins.
Winning.
And you watch on Thursday night from last week, and I was in the building at MetLife, it was as if the Jets had just won the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. It was so positive, and everyone was so excited, and Rodgers is smiling, and Saleh's fist pumping him, and it's great, and everyone in the media is like, hey, this team could go to the Super Bowl. It took 10 days before we're already back at this point. It could happen so fast. Mm-hmm. I am fascinated by this week because the cadence thing is not even a real issue. I think football heads can probably talk on it better. I don't think it's a cadence thing. I think it's more of a, okay, when the chips are against us, when we're in the corner here, we got to fight. Are we together? Are we gonna be the ones pointing fingers? And are we listening to WFAN in the morning? Are we reading the New York Post on Tuesday morning? What are we doing to prepare for the Minnesota Vikings, who, by the way, have their former number 3 overall pick coming against them in London, who looks like he might be an MVP performer. A lot of cool storylines, but the Jets, this is a key week. Going to London, can you stay together, or does it all come undone before we even get to Halloween?
Well, first of all, I agree with everything you said, Peter. I would say this, too. After the game, like if you listen to Aaron Rodgers' comments, if you listen to Robert Saleh's comments, who sounded like the coach?
Rodgers.
Rodgers did. Rodgers sounded like the more mature guy. Rodgers sounded like the one that was just kind of seeing this thing as a kind of a moment, not necessarily a problem. And it did seem like Robert Saleh was reacting to the media ups and downs that happens in New York. To your point, it's a very unique place. And I always wondered when this issue was going to show up in New York because, this team is going to meet adversity. The team is going to go through ups and downs. They're going to be looking for a leader. Oftentimes, that's the head coach, right? But the head coach doesn't even seem like he sounds like the most mature guy in the room. And so I'm not going to say it's a problem in New York, because I do think this is a one-time issue with the false starts and things like that, but 13 penalties
That's
for 90
13
yards,
penalties.
that's a real issue. And that does go to coaching, that does speak to coaching, it does speak to what you're doing at practice. But I don't know, man, it's just interesting. Aaron Rodgers sounded like the coach after the game. I don't know what that means, but Aaron Rodgers sounded like the more mature guy. And as this season goes through more of its ups and downs, I'm just going to be looking at who sounds like the true leader of this franchise, because I think they may have an issue there.
Well, listen, this is an advantage we have as a show that a lot of other shows do not. We are a bi-coastal show. You guys are in California right now. I'm in New York. And I have to tell you, I had a very cool experience yesterday. I went to the Jets facility. I was there for a long time. And I sat down with Aaron Rodgers for a long time. And we talked. And it's something that's going to be airing this weekend, coming up on game day morning. And it was a whole deal. And we talked about everything, guys. And we talked about this stuff, too, just to give a little taste of it, where we're at. Now, remember, this was yesterday. This is Monday. This is Monday in the middle of the day, less than 24 hours after a really miserable loss in miserable conditions in which Rodgers didn't play well, and there's a postgame with he and the head coach maybe back and forth, and he still sat down. So we talked a lot about how the things he's had to deal with, and he said, he's like, I'm also fighting Father Time right now. And I said, how's that fight going? And he goes, it's a dead heat right now. We're exchanging blows in the middle of the ring, and it's a dead heat. I'm like, all right. And I said, well, the good news is now you get to fly to the other side of the world and go to London. And he was like, woo! So we had a lot of jokes about that, Jamie, which I'm sure you can follow up with Rodgers because you'll sit with him. But on the topic of jokes, a Monday after a day that's that miserable for the Jets, and it was a pretty miserable day, you got to have some sort of icebreaker. So I made a lot of jokes about the cadence. I just went right at it. And I said that, I'm hearing reports that you went into Saleh's office and cleared off his desk and said, you're not taking my cold dead hands, Bob. You're not taking my cadence. And he laughed. He laughed at all of them. There's a lightness to him. And I think we forget this because he can come across as so cerebral and so heavy as he did in that press conference. He's been through everything. He's been through terrible things. He's been through great things. There's not a lot of things that rattle him. And the next day, he's sitting around laughing about the cadence thing. And he had continued to put it off as a thing, like the push-hug mishap thing, that the media runs with that is not a story. Now, my intuition sitting there with him is that I do not think Robert Saleh will utter anything whatsoever about offensive operation for the rest of the season. I think it is a whole – now, never mind cadence. We're not going to hear the word huddle. We're not going to hear the word timing. It's going to be all taboo. They will not say any of that stuff. It was an incredible piece, and he's got a heavy load on his shoulders in terms of the football right now. And there's a lot more coming from that. I can tell you guys more, and I will continue to tell you more throughout the week. But for the sake of the cadence thing, Rodgers made his comment about maybe you can hold them accountable. That's one option. I think that will be the option the Jets go with moving forward. That was the vibe I got in the room.